Good evening, Ryan. Welcome to this new episode of the Unstoppable mini-series. And tonight you are going to tell us everything about SunFunder, a company that you have founded many years ago. You will tell us exactly how many years ago, and how you have been able to overcome quite a few challenges, mainly thanks to important cooperations. But maybe to start with, could you please tell us what is exactly SunFunder and what kind of challenges are you tackling?
Sure, and thank you, Christophe, for having me today. It's great to join you at this interview. So I'm Ryan Levinson, co-founder and CEO of SunFunder. We started the company about almost 10 years ago. We're now a 40-person team, mostly based in Nairobi. It's where the majority of our team is based. But we also have team members in Paris and in London. And our mission is to pioneer and scale financing for clean energy and climate investments across emerging markets and underserved communities. We're a for-profit business, but very mission-oriented, with a goal to contribute to solving big global challenges, particularly energy access and climate change. And regarding energy access, you have 2 billion people around the world that lacks access to reliable energy, including hundreds of millions that live completely off the grid with no energy access. And of course, climate change, which is a global, not just challenge, but crisis that is an issue that cannot be addressed without a focus on emerging markets and clean energy investments in emerging markets in particular. If you look at global energy demand projections in the coming 3 decades, almost the entire increase in global energy demand is expected to come from emerging markets, which is why it's so important to focus on clean energy transition in emerging economies. So we're very focused on those two big global challenges, and we do that really by kind of zeroing in on the financing challenge. We are a specialty lender and investor in mostly clean energy projects, historically mostly solar energy and battery storage technology. And what we see as a really big gap in the market is that there's no doubt that there's an enormous amount of capital that is available to invest in clean energy projects in emerging markets and in climate investments more broadly. But that capital still sits on the sidelines, mainly, and is not able to actually make investments and have impact. And the reason why is because there's not like a very accessible and investable pipeline available for them to invest in. And that's really what we focus on at SunFunder, and one of the key ways that we provide value is by being really great at originating transactions and executing on them. And to do that well, you need to have a team on the ground that can be close to the projects and the clean energy companies, to be able to develop those relationships, to have expertise in the markets where you work and in the sectors that you work in. And that's what we are at SunFunder. We really specialize in being on the ground, close to the projects and the companies that we work with. And we really specialize in originating and executing on investable transactions, and then packaging them in a way that allows big global investors around the world to have a way to invest their capital to help support these projects.
But maybe you could tell us why it is so specific to invest in that kind of company, and maybe with one example, why is it so that you need a specific company such as SunFunder to reach and boost energy access in developing countries, especially for off-grid people?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few reasons why. First of all, you go to Africa or Southeast Asia and you talk to clean energy companies, and they all will tell you the same thing, that raising capital is a challenge for them. And there's a number of reasons why. One is you often have local banking institutions that aren't active in the space, or if they are, they will only be active for much larger projects, like over 20 or $30 million, for example. And then the same if you look at the big international financial institutions. A lot of those big international institutions, aren't comfortable going directly, into, markets like in sub-Saharan Africa, where, you in some cases have challenging investment environments, or, more risks or more uncertainty, or at least like they're just not as familiar with those markets. And then at the same time, you also typically have smaller project sizes. So where we specialize in is in distributed clean energy investments, such as, small scale solar home systems in off-grid, regions of sub-Saharan Africa, or mini grid projects, or, the solarization of telco towers, for example, or, financing, solar powered and energy efficient, technologies for the agriculture sector. And typically those require smaller ticket investments that the big banks, don't want to do individually. So you need, a specialty finance company that can aggregate those projects together, and then, present them to investors in a, more digestible way for them, so that fits their investment appetite. So that way, you could go to a big international investor and allow them to make a $50 or $100 million investment in a fund that will then support dozens and dozens of different types of companies and projects. So, in a lot of ways, we aggregate those investments together into a more, an investment structure that works better for larger investors.
So in a way, you are sort of a specialized retailer.
I'm sorry, a specialized
retailer. You are a loan retailer. You are.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it that way necessarily. I mean, it's more business to business for sure. So we're not lending to retail, or individuals.
But you are lending to smaller businesses.
That's right.
To businesses that cannot be reached by the more classical actors in the market.
That's correct. Yes.
But then the smaller you get, the more expensive it goes. So how do you manage to be profitable and efficient as you are targeting people that are, well, you have a business that is more costly than the classical business?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and there's not a perfect solution to it either. We one, work really hard at being efficient, with the transactions that we close. I think a really key part is that we aim to have very scalable relationships. So even though individual projects can be small, and therefore individual investments are quite small, and that is more expensive, there's no doubt about that. And it requires a lot more work per dollar deployed as well, working in these markets. But we're very relationship oriented. So we never intend to do one specific transaction with a company. So we love having long-term relationships with solar companies or clean energy companies that we can really scale over time. So we might start with a small loan, whether it's $500,000 or $5 million. It's still relatively small, for a big international global investor, or for a company like SunFunder that is aiming to put billions of dollars of capital to work over time. but it's never our intention to just leave it at that one, relatively small transaction. Our goal is to have multiple facilities with, individual clean energy companies over many years, and we've done that with a number of companies. I think D-Light, for example, is a great example. They're one of the leading solar home system providers in emerging markets around the world. Incredible company that has already had direct impact on over 100 million people, helping to get them improved energy access, which is just remarkable. And we now have been working with them, I think, for over 6 years. We've closed 4 or 5 facilities with them, starting with a 6-figure facility, and now we're able to talk about much larger facilities that we could be talking about $25 or $50 million facilities with companies like that now. So that's I think really important for us, is building those long-term relationships.
And what would be your main challenges? What are the main difficulties you had to overcome in this 10 years journey in order to be reaching those small companies that are actually providing electricity to people which are in very, very remote area? I can testify that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of challenges. It's hard to just list one. I think one challenge is that, it's critical to build a team that, is in the markets where the projects and the companies are. So we've built this great team in East Africa. At the same time, a huge area of the work we have to do is also fundraising, for raising the funds that we then use to make investments. And often the investors are in Europe or the US. And that kind of, forces us to be in multiple places at once to do our jobs well. So managing teams of people that work on different continents is certainly a challenge, and managing time zones related to that. I'm based on the US East Coast. We have teams in Europe. We have a team, of course, in East Africa. We can't all be together all the time. So that's certainly a challenge, is, managing dispersed teams, and then just in general building, an incredible team. It's less of a challenge today, because now that we have a strong track record, a lot of incredible people are interested in working for us. But in the very early days, like the first few years, working to build a great team was very hard. And I think for me, one of the best things that happened was having a really great business partner. And very early on, met Audrey, SunFunder's other co-founder. And she, right away made the move to East Africa, made that really smart decision that this is never going to work without us being on the ground and in the market where we're trying to work. So having Audrey based in East Africa and building a great team there, which also allowed me to be focusing on a lot of fundraising activities in the US and Europe. I think that was really key for this to work for us, and having
talking about fundraising. When we first met, SunFunder was actually doing crowdfunding in the US. Mm-hmm. And you have had to give up that kind of financing. Can you tell us why and how you changed tack?
Yeah. So when we started, in 2012, the industry had next to no track record. We ourselves, me and Audrey and the small team that we had at that point, ourselves, did not have a track record of managing funds. And, we could have just said, okay, let's raise a big $30 or $50 million fund. But we knew that to go down that road, it probably would have taken us, 3 or 4 years of doing nothing but fundraising before we were even able to make our first investment. And for us, it was so important to start making investments as soon as possible. Start getting our hands dirty, start learning. We knew we would be learning hard lessons, that we would make mistakes, and the sooner we learn those lessons, the better. The sooner we're going to be able to have more scalable impact. And we didn't want to just be spending our first 3 or 4 years doing nothing but talking to investors and raising money. So what crowdfunding did was allowed us to, within months, make our first investment. We built a website for, I think it cost like $7,000. We built it from scratch. And we were able to start posting projects on the website and raising money from individuals all over the world, not just in the US, but we had over 1,000 people from dozens of countries make small, tiny investments from $10 to, in the thousands. And that allowed us to get started in those first couple of years. And through crowdfunding, we probably worked with maybe like 10 different solar companies, made a couple dozen loans. And in those first few years, we learned how to build a lending institution. And then, a lot of those early loans, we learned some hard lessons on. The industry was just getting started. Everyone was kind of trying to figure everything out. The business models were quickly evolving. So not all of our investments were successful in the early days. We certainly had a number of non-performing loans. And we're a stronger company today because we went through those hard, challenging loans. We learned so much, and we really, we're very intentional about documenting our lessons learned and putting corrective actions into place. And and now we have a loan portfolio that's performing really well. And I think it's because we early on just got started as soon as possible, and crowdfunding really helped us do that. But after a few years of crowdfunding, we realized that, we can scale much more effectively by raising private capital through blended finance debt funds. So we transitioned away from crowdfunding, but it was absolutely critical in helping us, start learning as soon as possible.
And now that you are raising money from, you said that blended capital, so it means that you have big partners, which are many of which are DFIs or big foundations. Mm-hmm. How important are those partnerships with DFIs to the business of SunFunder, and of course to the impact the business is creating?
Oh, extremely important. I mean, we would not be where we are without our investors. And we look at our investors as partners, as you just described, on both the debt side and the equity side. And I know you're not looking for me to say this here, but I think a great example of a partnership on the equity side is the partnership we have with you at Schneider Electric. Just like what I was describing with how we look at our investees, our borrowers, where we want it to be a long-term relationship and have multiple facilities with them over time. We've been successful because on the equity side and the debt side, we've been able to develop investor partnerships where, they want to continue to support us over and over again, and in good times and in bad times, because, I think we all know that in this industry, things can be a little messy sometimes, and it's not easy. And we're all trying to figure this out and do something that, really has never been done before at scale. That's not always going to go smoothly. So you need partnerships with investors, where they're willing to be patient and understand the challenges in the market, and understand that, your strategy is going to change over time as you adapt and adjust, to changes in the environment. And we try to be that way with our borrowers as well. And, really be partners for them, not just, when things are easy. That's easy to do, but when things get challenging as well, so like the same way you've now worked with us on, 3 or 4 different investments. On the debt fund side, it's been the same. I think, there's a few types of investors that have been really key for us. DFIs have been really important. So private impact investors, and then the donor community too. So great examples on all 3 of those are DFC, formerly referred to as OPIC, the U.S. government, DFI, they've now been an anchor investor in our debt funds for, both of our last two major debt funds. They were kind of the anchor investor. And, we're now, looking at doing something much bigger with them. And, that's been an incredible partnership for us. And we for sure would not be where we are today without them. Same with on the private impact investor side. Calvert Impact Capital is a great example. And I think both Calvert and DFC are examples where, investors aren't just there to provide capital, but, to actually provide a lot of other value. A good investor pushes you in some ways to take steps forward and advance as a company. And, we're a stronger company because of those investor partnerships. They kind of, at every stage in our development, kind of looked at what it would take for us to get to the next level and kind of pushed us to get there a little faster. And sometimes that made us, be put in uncomfortable situations, because it kind of pushes us to accelerate our progress. And, whether it's develop new policies or make improvements to our team or, improve our risk guidelines and standards. But by having smart investors that kind of push you to get better, it really accelerates your progress and your impact. And that's what's been great about investors like that. But it's also important to call out kind of the donors as well, because we wouldn't be where we are without support from the donor community. A great example is the IKEA Foundation. They came in with a really critical first loss capital investment in our last fund. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have been able to attract the larger ticket institutional investors that were supportive in the fund. So IKEA, played that role in our last fund. Rockefeller Foundation did in our previous fund, and those partnerships with Rockefeller and IKEA, have been so critical to our growth and the impact that we're having. So it's really, and that's what
it is thanks to you that Rockefeller Foundation and IKEA Foundation have made a joint venture together.
Definitely
and are now
not.
setting up a 1 billion fund.
Definitely not thanks to us, but we certainly are hopeful that we'll have an opportunity to work with them.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. Just to close, if you were to say what is the biggest achievement you've made in those 10 years, what would you put forward?
I think it all comes down to why we're in this for the first place, which is the impact we're trying to achieve. We've helped over 8 million people get access to clean energy, and that's why we do this. It is the energy access impact and the impact we're having on climate, and playing a key role as a pioneer in this market. And we were very much a first and early mover in the space as a dedicated investor. So seeing the market grow and mature, and knowing that we played a role in that, one of many companies, of course, that had huge impact in helping to develop this industry, and knowing that we've had both direct impact in terms of helping millions of people get access to clean energy and reducing millions of tons of CO2 emissions, but also like the pioneering impact we've had on playing a role in building an industry that we know is critical to solving some of these global challenges. That's certainly I think what's been most rewarding for us, and that's what brings our whole team together. It's a group of people extremely passionate about this work. We're all in it for the same reason. That's what's most meaningful for us, for sure.
Well done, and congratulations, because we are very pleased to be a small part of this great impact. Thank you very much, Ryan. It was really a pleasure to exchange with you on those subjects.
Thank you so much.